Dear students, welcome to the Symbiosis Entrance Test, that is SET 2023 Round 2 Last Minute Tips. Now today we are around the 11th and 12th of May and the exam is supposed to happen on the 14th of May from 10:30 am to 11:30 am. So it is very important to understand what you should be doing in these last 2 or 3 days. So first of all, before we go ahead and look at the must do things, we should at least know what happened in the first round of the exam. Now the first round of the exam happened on the 6th of May and we had done a detailed analysis video for the same. You can check in the playlist and find the detailed analysis and go through it to have a better understanding of the entire paper. I have given you a quick summary over here. There were 60 questions in 60 minutes. There is no negative marking in SET. And the area-wise breakup was 16 questions in English, 16 in maths, 16 in general awareness, and 16 in reasoning, which included analytical and verbal reasoning. We've also given you an estimate of good score that one should have scored based on the difficulty level. So one could have scored 12 out of 16 in English, around 12 to 13 in maths, 9 out of 16 in the GK and current affairs section, which is slightly difficult because one is supposed to know a lot of things in GK, which is not very easy, especially in these days because we are so distracted with the mobile phone and all the information is available at the tip of our fingers. So that's why we generally tend to not retain a lot of information. So that's why the GK's good score is slightly lower. And analytical and verbal reasoning, which was very easy. 9 out of 12 could have been scored over there as well. So therefore, this is an estimate of the good score. We estimate the overall good score to be around 40 plus out of the 60 marks that you had. And more importantly, you can go through the detailed analysis to see what questions were asked and what areas were tested. Like in the English section, there were 1 or 2 odd questions on poems or figures of speech which were very tricky. So one is supposed to leave those questions because SET is a speed-based test. You just have 60 minutes, you have to attempt all the questions. So you can't wait on any question which you are not aware of. So if at all in the exam you come across questions which are very new, which you're not familiar with, you're not supposed to spend a lot of time on it. Simply mark any answer because there is no negative marking and move on to the subsequent questions. So let's have a look at the 5 must-do things before the SET 2023 Round 2 attempt. A very important thing in the SET exam is the GK section. Most students lose out in that section heavily. So we need to understand that GK is important and you can't leave it completely or you can't leave it on your luck completely. So how can you prepare for GK? If you are an IMS student, we have provided you with SET compendium on the My IMS portal under GK zone. So you can go through those questions which are close to what is asked in SET general knowledge section. Also, you should go through the weekly current affairs of at least the 2023 year so that the recent current affairs is covered by you. You can then take a couple of quizzes from the compendium as well as the current affairs so that you are able to test yourself in the GK and current affairs section. Next, the second thing is mock tests. Now, we are taking so many tests in this exam season that we need to be familiar with each exam pattern. So that is why before any exam, one should ensure that they take at least 1 or 2 mock tests to be familiar with the exam pattern and to be able to deliver the best that they can in that examination. So you need to identify your strong areas and have a strategy in place before you get into the actual exam. The third thing that you need to do is revise the QA, VA and LR, that is Maths, English, LR topics, and you can't be revising the entire chapters. So you need to pick and choose topics and identify a strategy there. Fourth thing is you don't want to prepare well and yet lose out because you don't carry important things to the center and you get nervous or you panic and you lose out marks because of such factors. So be very well prepared, be relaxed on the exam day and have everything ready before you go to the exam center. And last is you don't want to reach late and miss out on attempting the exam or lose out time because you've reached late. So these are the 5 must-do things. I'll briefly elaborate on the study strategy for each of the sections as well. Now, the important chapters or topics based on historic trend and the round 1 analysis are as follows. So in arithmetic, you should give importance to percentages, profit loss, SICI, ratios, and averages. In modern maths, set theory, permutations, combinations, and probability. In geometry, you should focus on the basic properties of all the figures, all the shapes, and mensuration. In algebra, linear and quadratic equation and progressions can be important. In numbers, the properties of numbers and HCF LCM are all important topics. Now you can't be expected to go through all the exercises of all these chapters. So therefore, just do an overview of all the questions and maybe pick out 5-7 questions from each chapter and quickly solve them and test whether you are aware of the concepts or not. So this should be the strategy for QA. Similarly, for VA, in these last couple of days, you can't go through all the rules again, but grammar is very heavy in SET, so you need to make sure that you know all the rules of grammar. You won't take a lot of time to study grammar, so make sure you study all the rules of grammar and you solve a couple of exercises so that you are in touch with all the rules. Similarly, vocabulary. Now, vocabulary is something which takes a lot of time. So you can't expect to, grow your vocabulary in the last 2-3 days. So I would suggest that you don't work a lot or don't spend a lot of time on vocabulary. Proverbs and idioms. Now you have a set of commonly appearing proverbs and idioms in the examinations. So go through your proverbs and idioms exercises, your theory, your class exercises and practice exercises. You'll find a sufficient number of proverbs and idioms. Make sure you go through at least 40-50 proverbs and idioms in the next 2-3 days, and you are able to handle questions based on proverbs and idioms. Figures of speech. Now, if not a lot of depth of figures of speech, at least the basic meaning of each figure of speech and examples of it should be known. So if you do that, you'll be able to handle at least 1 or 2 questions of figure of speech, because this time there were 2 questions of figure of speech. So you could, at least you could handle one of them if you know the basics also. Coming to the LR section. Now in LR, you have analytical reasoning as well as verbal reasoning. The analytical reasoning questions were not very difficult, and the questions mainly were on very commonly appearing topics like coding, decoding, clocks and calendars, series, blood relations, and linear arrangements. I think just like QA, students can go through the concepts of these chapters very quickly and pick out 5 to 7 questions from each chapter and just solve them for a recap or a revision. As far as the verbal reasoning is concerned, it is again very concept based, and if you are not clear with the concept, you will not be able to answer the questions on verbal reasoning. So make sure if you are not clear with the concepts of verbal reasoning, at least you get a basic understanding of the concepts for verbal reasoning. If you are clear with the concepts, I think you can just revise 5 questions of each type, and that should be sufficient. As far as the GK is concerned, now GK consists of 2 parts, static GK and current affairs. The weightage of static GK is slightly higher in SET as seen in the round 1. So therefore, I recommend all students to go through the SET compendium that is provided to the students of IMS on their My IMS portal. This will help you a lot in understanding what question types come in what question types are generally tested in the examination, like awards and authors of books or historical dates or such things, geography. So those are static GK things that are tested. Who was the president when emergency was announced in India, such things. So these are kind of questions which are static GK, which will not change with time. Whereas current affairs, which are recently occurred things, such things are covered under current affairs, and we have weekly current affairs document that is provided to students again under the GK zone. So if not all the 4 months of 2023, students should at least go through at least 2 or 3 months out of Jan, Feb, March and April. So GK zone, compendium and quizzes, and current affairs. Also in GK, I'd like to emphasize that students who had taken the mock tests told me that they found at least 3 to 4 questions which had appeared in the IMS mocks that they found in the actual SET paper as well. So make sure that you take 2 or 3 mock tests before the exam, like 1 mock test per day before the exam, and I think you should be able to handle that. And you'll find that you'll be familiar with a lot of question types. So that's all in the 5 must do things before the examination. Join us for a live analysis on the 14th of May at 2 p.m. and you can subscribe to the channel to get notifications for the same. All the best and see you on Sunday, 14th May.